それでは、お時間。
Thank you very much. As it is time to continue with the session, this will be the very final session of the day, the general Q&A session. We would like to ask Mr. Akira Shimada, President and CEO of NTT Holding Company, to respond to any questions you might have. Mr. Shimada, the floor is yours.
So
the protocol for the Q&A is the same with the previous sessions. For those of you who are on site, please raise your hand. If you wish to ask a question, when you're connected to online, please use the Q&A hand raise function. And please limit yourself to 2 questions at a time. So let's take questions. Please raise your hand if you have any questions for Mr. Shimada. Let's go on to you, please. Masuno from Nomura Securities. This may be a repetition of the previous question, but I really would like to ask your comments on the direction and the structure of the group. So within the group, NTT East and West are self-contained. They are adjusting data center. But when it comes to integrated ICT, how you integrate enterprise and consumers, this is very important. I know that you are competing with competitors who are actually heavily integrated. So there's an upside of 200 billion yen operating profit. How do you intend to realize that through enterprise and consumer business? So what about the true synergy between Docomo and NTT Communications? Today, Mr. Maeda took the floor. How do you see Mr. Maeda's view? What are your thoughts about the current structure? Is the current structure really working? That's my first question. And also the other point, I would like to ask about NTT law. I find it most unfortunate that when it comes to mobile, I really feel that mobile should be substitute for the universal service obligation going forward. But mobile broadband based on, I think mobile and shared broadband, that should be utilized. This is a major nationwide initiative. If we don't do this, what are we even aiming for 6G? It doesn't make sense. So can you talk about what is mobile broadband alternative? How do you see the trend toward that? These are my 2 broad questions. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Let me respond to your question about integrated ICT. You asked about Docomo groups. Let me respond to your question on this point. Now, Mr. Maeda, is able to everything. Yes. I think I have to respond. He's overseeing every part of the group naturally. Now, as for myself, I'm responsible for NTT Group. I am supervising NTT Group, but I'm not alone. I'm supported by my staff. And Mr. Maeda is also being supported by a very strong team as well. And Mr. Kojima of NTT Communications, they have a good, strong management as well. But Mr. Maeda is exercising the overall grip for these 2 companies. Now this year, Docomo will be facing a very significant and very important year. As was mentioned by Mr. Maeda earlier, the market share of 35% must be safeguarded and must be protected at all costs, no matter what. So we are still dipping below market share, but we cannot accept a market share that's lower than the current level. So this is a number which we cannot allow Docomo to accept. So it's important that we make a reversal. This is an absolute need to do this. So I don't want this particular scenario to happen, but if this year they have to spend money to protect customer base, then that should be done. I think that's the intention that Docomo should have as they face the business this year. Naturally, if you spend money to protect your customer base, then naturally you have to offset that cost through other businesses. That is the job of the management. So that is my expectation to the management team. Furthermore, there was a previous question. You mentioned that we have not been successful since Dr. Tachikawa's time. it's true that the market share has been constantly declining. There's a history of downward trend in market share. This was mentioned by Maeda-san as well. I think maybe we prioritize profit too much. So maintaining profit, even at the risk of reduction of market share, that would be fine. That type of mentality was prevalent up until now. And that is the backdrop for the continuous downward trend in market share. And we cannot go any lower than the current level. As the leading company, we must expand new frontiers. That intention is very important if we are to be a leading company going forward. So this year, we will focus on maintaining our customer base. And on top of that, we will be evolving new businesses so that they can flourish in the future. One area is the financial service. We need to expand financial services as part of this effort. Also, it's important that we also work on entertainment business and also work with the venue businesses as well. We should focus on delivering contents to our customers. We should also add value-added services on top of our offerings. That will be very important this fiscal year. And I'm sure that this will be indeed addressed by Mr. Maeda. I'm confident about that. And also, this is something that Docomo Group must deliver. As for enterprise business, this is also very important. Although numbers are not clear, but as far as the revenues are concerned, Docomo Group enterprise business is doing very well. Of course, KDDI is also a strong player as well. So it is important that we offer a very diverse menu and also focus on SME market as well. And again, offer solutions as the leading company in the SME market as well. Also, I think in the future, SME market will be the scene of the battleground. It will be a very intensive battlefield for us. In the case of large companies, we have done very well. We have addressed the large company market. But it's important that we also be victorious in the SME market as well. That is going to be a very critical factor. So that is an area where we need to reinforce our efforts. I would say Docomo reinforce their efforts. Now, the second point, you asked about the NTT law. We are now in the midst of the discussion as we speak. I have consistently said, since last year in particular, I have also insisted that we should be able to use mobile. We should just focus on fixed line part. When people go outside, we should be able to offer services. So I think we should consider universal services which focus not just indoors but also outdoor as well, so the people could be connected at all times. But within the advisory panel, some people are focused on primarily in-house, indoor environment. I suppose this would be viable as one assumption for the discussion, but I think at the end of the day, I think we should really offer broadband and also mobile-based universal service down the road. So we do have no intention of changing our argument, and we have no intention of changing our position either. And I think ultimately this will be the position taken. But along the way, though, for example, in next fiscal year, when an amendment is to be implemented, to what extent can these changes be realized? For example, we have been calculating the deficit we are suffering because of the universal service obligation and how much burden we will have to ask for the public. We have come up with such simulation and calculations. But if we want to do this cheaply, then the fixed line service offered by mobile players will have to be utilized. If we can offer the mobile fixed line services being offered by mobile operators, then we can actually offer service coverage at the lowest cost. So that has come to light. Again, we're still in the midst of discussion, but this is the position that we would like to really put forward and also propose. And beyond that point, as we saw in the recent floods, we should focus not just on fixed line, because evacuation centers outside environment, and we need to be able to offer universal sort of obligations, even in those cases, and how to recover the main route against the face of natural disasters. This is another point that needs to be discussed fully, I believe. Thank you very much. That is all. Thank you very much.
I'd like to take the next question. So in the middle row, please go ahead. SMBC Nikko Securities, I am Kikuchi. Thank you very much for today. I have two questions. Next fiscal year and next fiscal year, NTT's consolidated profit. This year, you're planning a decline in the profit, and we are slightly disappointed. But today's Docomo's presentation and listening to NTT East and West's presentation, Docomo's ARPU and East and West's decline in revenue trend, everybody's considering it as a risk. But next fiscal year, I won't say that everything will recover, but it's not going to be at a degree of this fiscal year. That's what we expect. So if that is so, next fiscal year onwards, a consolidated net profit increase is something that we can have expectations, and it will return to the previous level. Can we think in that way? That's my first question. Mr. Kikuchi, thank you very much. As you have pointed out, well, today, in the telecommunications business, in terms of telecommunications business, we had three key companies within the NTT group make the presentation. But when we look at the profit-based perspective, these three companies are going to have to perform solidly, or else we will not be able to go towards the growth path. And that's why we selected these three companies. And next year, whether they'll be able to make a turnaround for these three companies, I have confidence. And in addition to that, NTT Data is gaining a large position. And NTT Data, I believe that they will thoroughly grow this year and next year as well for even further growth. So as the overall NTT group, I will be able to go towards the growth trajectory is what I think. Well, next fiscal year, there was a bit of a negative impact, such as the energy market, which has a high volatility. The measures to suppress such volatility has already been implemented right now. So the several 10 billion yen, there were times that we made a loss of 10 billion yen in terms of the electricity expenses. But we have come out of that, and those type of elements will decline moving forward. So in that sense as well, I believe that we can make a turnaround. Thank you. And my second question, the new incoming Prime Minister, Mr. Ishiba, the relationship or involvement between him and your company, or with him and the telecommunications industries, I'm not well versed in that. But what kind of communications did you have in the past? And Mr. Ishiba, towards telecommunications or NTT or towards NTT law, what kind of thoughts does he have? It's unclear. Therefore, from your perspective, Mr. Shimada, what kind of expectations do you have? Or well, yes, I guess expectations. If you have any expectations, I would like you to share that with us. Because in the past, if there were any relationship between Mr. Ishiba and your company, I would like to know as well. Well, first of all, the newly elected the LDP president, Mr. Ishiba, will probably become the Prime Minister of Japan. So I would like him to have the understanding towards technology and others. And within the global business arena, make sure that Japan can surely grow. And for that, we will be putting our efforts to realize that. Therefore, we would like him to come up with policies that will support such efforts. That is the expectation, first of all, that we have. I personally have had a dialogue with Mr. Ishiba. However, I believe that he has expectations for the telecommunications industry. However, it's not that he has been making announcements of any policies in the past regarding this industry. Therefore, I'd like to have understanding from his side regarding this overall industry. And at the end, to come up with the telecommunications and IT industry growth is going to be important for the overall Japanese people's growth, economic growth. Therefore, our telecommunications industry as well as the IT industry would like to provide the support or have a various discussions and dialogues with them. We will appreciate it if we have such opportunity. Thank you very much.
のご質問をお受けしたいと思います。
Next question, please. Yes, please. Tokunaga from Daiwa Securities. I would like to ask two questions. My first question, the same question that I asked Mr. Maeda of Docomo earlier, improving ARPU and also improving the market share beyond 35%. As you address this, if you're going to go after market share, depending on the competitive landscape, you might have to change your pricing plans. So, Mr. Shimada, how do you see Docomo's aggressive strategy? Do you believe that they have do you think they're sufficiently prepared, or other areas where they need to accelerate in order to compete in the marketplace? So, how do you see Docomo from the viewpoint of NTT Holding Company? Thank you. Right now, Mr. Maeda, President Maeda, is now leading the efforts, and I appreciate his efforts. So, reinforcing sales at electronic shops, that's very important, I believe. That must be done. Furthermore, this came up earlier as well, but furthermore, increasing the capacity for Ahamo, I think this is going to help improve customer satisfaction. And so the traffic itself is increasing as a result. So I think they made a very good decision, and this was a very good policy. As far as the pricing plan is concerned, we need to see the response of the customers. It's important that we be flexible in changing the plan. So is the current structure and are the current lineup sufficient to respond to customers' requirements? I'm sure Docomo is discussing this internally. So I hope that at appropriate timing, they'll be able to conduct review of the pricing plan and the billing plan. I think the general trend is that people want greater data capacity. With regard to Ahamo, we've been very fortunate. And this is a very suitable product when people are taking up remote connection services. So the take-up has to be very strong. But then there's also a need for face-to-face communication. People who want to physically touch the equipment. Customers who still want to have physical touch before they actually buy the product. So in the case of replacement, for example, people still want to go to shops. So some shops are beginning to address replacement in physical form as well. So there are a lot of different types of customers out there. So it's important that we respond to each customer type. And it's important that we try to respond in a way which can offer enhanced customer experience. We'll work toward that. And for that, we want to continuously change the structure if need be. Now, even during this fiscal year, there are likely to be some changes as well, I believe. Okay, thank you for that. Let me go on to my second question. This relates to your midterm plan. Based on what you mentioned earlier, with regard to operating plan, operating profit rather, I have a feeling that this is going to be recovering. But you didn't too much. You mentioned that capex was not increasing, but then, as far as the progress of the current plan is concerned, Mr. President, what are the areas that are doing well? What are the areas that are not progressing well? In order to cover the areas that are behind in the progress, how do you intend to support that? Can you give us an idea as to how a bit that will work out? Okay, thank you. As far as the capex is concerned, it's not a major. There's nothing major. But right now, Docomo is trying to improve their quality, and they're investing in order to improve the service quality. I think today on page 2 or page 3 of the presentation material, there was talk about how they're using global vendors equipment as well. So Docomo has begun to make very good investments. So again, we're not expecting extremely significant large capex per se, but we will invest in base stations that have strong performance, that have high performance. So it's important that we steadily carry out that type of investment. That is one thing. Now, this will be something that will be meaningful more down the road, but this was covered by Mr. Shibutani earlier with regard to the core basic network. We want to introduce ION-based IP node. Right now, we're working on ION 2.0. We'll be launching ION 2.0 product next fiscal year. But it's important that we introduce equipment that will lead to power consumption reduction, because that will so today was lowered for ION 1.0, but then the power consumption was not changed. So for the core network part, it's important that ION 2.0 be introduced. We need to incorporate ION 2.0 version type of equipment. As was mentioned by Mr. Shibutani, the replacement cycle for equipment will be coming. So as we'll follow the routine replacement cycle, replacement type of investment will not be increasing. But again, we'll be switching to something new when the replacement cycle comes. So through that, we'll be able to improve the service quality, and also we'll be able to reduce costs because the power consumption will be lowered through this equipment. So for telecommunication related services, we believe that type of investment will be continuing. And naturally, we're not talking just about capex. We need to make investments to expand new business. We need to invest. We might have to acquire companies so that we can expand into new business areas. So there's no specific area that I can talk about, but there's several candidate areas. So regardless domestic and overseas, we will consider potential opportunities out there and respond with acquisition should such opportunities arise. Thank you.
それでは次。
We would like to take the next question. Then on the left side row, please. Tsusaka from Morgan Stanley. Hello. Thank you. I have a question regarding the overall presentation made today. I heard the overall presentation today, and the majority was a positive direction, but I'm the analyst on the finance side, so and think about how much drop there will occur in the profit. Docomo, 1% and will contribute to the profit, and NTT East and West together will be a 2% profit growth. And with enterprise, how much they can make money, that's the unclear part. So with the best case scenario, it will be the early single digit. If you can secure that amount of a profit, that should be fine. However, looking at the current business model, probably that level will be the limit, is the impression I have. The underlining a profit, if that is a situation for this, then the additional investment will, for the stock market, they want to return for the investment. So towards the 1%, 2% growth company, will you make the investment or not? That investment decision is going to be required. And if there's no risk there, yes, they can say we will invest in a defensive manner. But until now, if there's a volatility and if there's risk, there may be investors who will get scared and not make an investment. But towards the stock market, to give them a peace of mind, Well, on other hand, there the underlying profit, and on the other hand, there's a shareholder return. And with the both sides, it's going to be a total return. Probably it's better to show it in that way, given the size of your company. Now, looking at the past EPS numbers, the EPS, it's been three folds now, and I think that track record is an impressive one. So, thinking from this perspective as well, what do you think? The overall presentations, the pitch or the tone when you speak to the investors, I think you can make a pitch of what the total return is going to be. So operating a profit or EBITDA, you shouldn't focus too much on those two elements. So within yourself, is there some these organized within yourself? Thank you very much for that. Last year, when we announced the medium-term management strategy, well, Tsusaka-san, yourself, and from others, we were told that the a little bit more of EPS should be described as well or mentioned as well. And actually, myself, last year, the feeling I had when we created the medium-term management strategy is that each operating company, OpCos, I didn't want them to become too dependent on the buyback from the holding company, meaning that I want them to grow on their own and generate return on their own. And each company has already become to a certain size, a large certain size. Therefore, gaining return organically, well, they cannot immediately increase in that way is correct, as you pointed out. So conducting M&As, well, aside from NTT East and West, but Docomo or NTT Data, they can utilize M&A to add on to the organic growth is the request that I have made to them. So in a way, it's a perspective of investor or maybe an internal perspective. However, towards the expectations from the investors, as myself, what I think is that to actually act upon it, meaning increase the dividend or in a stable manner conduct share buyback, by showing that is what I am working on right now. And regarding EPS, actually, for us, we do have a target in mind. However, we haven't committed it as a number. So probably you are implying to make a commitment to that. However, the way we're rolling out the business, I cannot clearly say, but I want you to have a certain level of expectations and just watch what we do for a little while longer and also look at our track record. We do have the feeling that we want to make one more leap or one more large jump. And from that perspective, we would like to make certain investments. And I have to continue to say this, or else within the group, they may have feelings come out that, oh, maybe we don't have to make new investments anymore. So I want the group companies to take on a new challenge, do something new, and create the opportunity for their new businesses. And that type of a willingness is important, is what I think. Once I become sure about what can be done, I feel that we can change the direction a bit. But please let me work on this a bit more. Thank you.
それでは大変恐縮
I'm afraid we have come to close the session, so this will be the final question for the session. Let us take your question. This will be the final question for this session. Hori from Mizuho Securities, thank you for this opportunity. I would ask a little bit about NTT Data's data center business. How you at NTT Holding Company view data center business at NTT Data. I think East and West and Docomo, they're trying to make a recovery and minimize any downside. So right now, as far as data is concerned, as was mentioned by Mr. Shimada earlier, data is still enjoying very robust growth. But then, having said this, data center business at data, the revenue source, actually investment still outweighs the revenue or profit. So no, there's no free cash flow. So you're spending 1.5 trillion over a 5-year period, and you invest 390 billion yen per annum. Actually, your investment into data center could actually exceed 2 trillion, and you'll be perhaps maybe delaying the time in which you'll be able to make profit from, you'll be able to generate free cash flow from the data center. So your market cap is the same as Nomura Research Institute. So that being the case, if there's demand, are you going to allow them to invest regardless of the financial situation? Is that your position with regard to the NTT Data's data center business? Or at minimum, are you going to say that this business that would be profitable if you take a look at Equinix? So if you spend, you'll be able to eventually generate free cash flow. So are you going to demonstrate to the investor community that you'll be able to generate profit? And because the free cash flow, because of the foreign exchange rate, capex cannot be contained in 1.5 trillion. So I guess my point is, are you going to continue to be aggressive when it comes to data center? Are you going to continue to invest in data centers regardless of the profit right now? Or are you going to exercise financial discipline in terms of investing in data center? So as far as the holding company is concerned, to what extent are you going to allow NTT Data to invest in data center? So over the next 5 years, I think the data center business is going to be a very important part of your growth strategy at the group. So to what extent can NTT Holding Company allow NTT Data to invest in data center business? Thank you for the question. To begin with, data center business was carried out by NTT Data as well as by the holding company up until now. Actually, at one time, it is true that the growth of the data center business could actually start to fall. There was a time when we felt that the data center business could actually begin to decline. This was before the data center business was transferred to data. But actually, this prediction did not come out true. But this prediction did not come out as true. There are the three top players, including NTT. There's a difference in timing in the investment. So we were somewhat delayed, somewhat behind in the investment cycle compared to the two top players. That is true. So the companies that were ahead of us, they have completed investment ahead of us. And some of them have transferred their data center assets into REITs. So as far as we're concerned, eventually, as we have consistently mentioned, around next year, we want to create our own REIT as well. So at that juncture, we'll be able to recycle the necessary funds and still be able to be involved in this marketplace. So yes, we were behind the major players. So in order to catch up, we're trying to make very robust investment. That is true. That is where we are at right now. And I believe that is the recognition. That is the recognition on the part of NTT Data as well. Again, this entails a very difficult decision. Interest rates are rising right now. That is true. So yes, the situation is somewhat difficult. That is true. I have to be very candid and admit that we are in a very difficult environment. But actually, if we can overcome the next couple of years, if we can ride the next couple of years, I think we'll be able to go back to the normal situation again. Now, are we going to do this forever? That is not the case, naturally. But I think for the next couple of years, I think we need to persevere. We need to be persevere and patient and address this. That is my understanding of this particular business segment. Now, of course, it's difficult to envision that we'll continue the current pace of investment forever. That is not what we're saying. But right now, AI is emerging. And also, 60% of our customers are actually the so-called hyperscalers. But I think going forward, maybe it's not just fiber. Maybe it's just the hyperscalers. I think people who are big to feel that public clouds are beginning to be too expensive. That could be a new market for us. So maybe the so-called industry cloud market could emerge because some people might feel that public cloud is now too expensive. So I think inclusive of the content and the substance of the data centers, we need to really revisit our data center strategy. I think this year we need to do that. So it's not so we're not just going to merely make capex into data center per se. It's important that we also consider the potential cloud as the new business area. So I think we are coming to the area where we need to see these other areas as potential candidates. So of course how do we respond to the industry's needs to lower the delivery of these services? That's another thing that we need to consider. So I think data center business is going to become even more hybrid going forward. And also the capacity and the strength of NTT Data can be very significant. They can contribute to this new market. Right now, they're not just involved in creating single system integration projects. They have the ability to create software as well. They have high quality. They're able to address high level specifications. These are the requirements on the part of the customers as well. So how can you offer high quality software that is globally compatible? For example, the types that are offered by players such as SAP. There are issues we need to be able to address them. We need to offer solutions that can also combine cloud and offer hybrid-based solutions to the customers. That is now what is required from the customers these days. I know that I'm talking beside the point, but I think NTT Data can really make a contribution to this side of the business as well. I know that I've somewhat veered off the major topic of your question. So it's not just focusing on mere data center business per se. It's important that as we try to expand new business opportunities, we are in a very good position. So that being the case, I hope that we can grit our teeth and grit our teeth and write the current situation and be patient so that we can be successful in the next stage. Thank you very much. If I could ask a second question. This relates to my first question. I think what you mentioned is that you want to focus on covering everything from the application layer all the way down to the infrastructure layer, and you have this full stack. That's your strength. But this might be contrary to the shareholder return question earlier. But now the NTT law discussion is now being carried out, and also eventually in 2030 you'll be able to implement IOWN in full scale because the copper telephones will now be terminated. So I think that now you're making preparations to emerge as a full-scale ICT player. So I think that's why you're so involved in data center business, and this makes sense because this is a peripheral business for your telecom business. Now, if you want to launch IOWN in full scale, I think this will entail significant capex. So maybe you don't need to focus on shareholder return like other telecom carriers because you're already involved in other businesses. So maybe you could reset the scene and try to refocus all your efforts on growth. Maybe that time could come. What are your thoughts? Do you think such time will come? With regard to APN, with regard to all photonics network, this doesn't entail that much investment. Why? Because fiber itself is already completed. We've already more or less carried out the investment required for fiber. If we need even larger capacity, then we need to introduce multi-core type of technology. But I think for the time being, we just need to tweak the transmission equipment, and we should be able to accommodate the change in technology. So it's not something. So we are not talking about domestic capex that will entail significant investment. That is not something we're intending. That is not. So it's not a major system change. It's just about changing transmission equipment. So, for example, when we take a look at investment up until 2030, I don't think we need to make that significant investment in this area because we should be able to achieve what we want even without that large investment. So we're not envisioning such heavy investment in the domestic scene. I think that's how that is how you should understand our position. Okay, thank you very much for that.
With this, we would like to conclude the comprehensive overall Q&A session. Mr. Shimada, thank you very much. Thank you. With this, we have concluded all of the scheduled program for today. Thank you very much for staying with us for the long hours. With this, we would like to conclude NTT IR Day 2024. We seek your continuous support and understanding of NTT. Thank you.